I am Dr. Philip McMillan, and my passion is about finding the root cause for chronic illness. This is what drives me. This is what helps me to come up with ideas and innovations to help you to find solutions. And today we're talking about the sinuses because I can warn you ahead of time that this is going to be a big problem. A lot of people continue to underestimate COVID, but it's because they don't understand what it's doing. This is a beast of a virus. And the way to understand why you must take it seriously is remember you don't know where this has come from. So if you want to underestimate it, you do so at your peril. Now, what I'll be focusing on today is highlighting some research that has come out of China where they have looked at a new pattern of upper respiratory tract infections in primary care in southern China. And what I'll be highlighting is the changes that they have noticed with certain pathogens. The reason this is important is because it's likely to be the same that's happening everywhere. So, are you suffering from chronic nasal stuffiness, postnasal drip, that feeling that your head is always heavy? This could be really the problem. And by the end of this presentation, you should be able to have a simple, effective strategy that will help you to get beyond it. One of the interesting things about Omicron is that, different from the original variants that had a predilection for going deep into the lungs and causing inflammatory problems, guess where Omicron likes to sit? In your sinuses. And you can see these are your main sinuses. This is the frontal sinus here, maxillary sinus in the cheeks. This one here is our problem one, the sphenoid sinus, because it is sitting literally right under your brain. The pituitary gland is literally right on top of it. And so if this becomes inflamed, guess what? It then starts to cause neurological symptoms. And this is one of the important things about why you don't underestimate what is going on. So I'll take you through just a few things that they had said in terms of the research. So they found a few patterns that were different from before. So many people think that the symptoms they've got now that are probably ongoing are just the same old, same old. But as I tell you, Omicron has a predilection for the sinuses, and therefore it is impacting on the way how the microbiome functions in the sinuses. When I think of people who are suffering with long term symptoms, there are three areas I go for. One is the gut, second is the sinuses, and third is the chest. For the vast majority of people who don't have gut issues, they usually have sinus issues. And we are seeing it with regards to the scans. A lot of people have subclinical inflammatory processes that are going on. By the end of this presentation, not only will you get some secrets, but you will also be able to get access to this course. Now, some people will want to support us by doing the whole course, but even if you can't, it's at a discounted price. Make sure you get the free nitric oxide ebook. This is there and it talks specifically about the sinuses and what you can do. It's a very valuable piece of information, and we took quite some time putting it together. And it's not the whole book, but it's an important part about the sinuses and what's happening in terms of it. So if you like to read through, this is only about a short ebook, 30 pages long, talking about the sinuses. But yes, we do appreciate the support if you want to do the course. Nitric oxide, very few people have heard of, is going to be the answer for most people. And you need to understand why this is important. So, a few things from the paper here. When they looked at the testing in terms of the infections, they were looking at almost 2,000 adults, 1958 adults who had an acute respiratory tract infection. It was from 17 primary care clinics. And this was between January to March of 2024, so about a year ago. And so that's the reason this is so important, because it is up to date. They found using PCR, don't argue about how accurate it is with COVID, but just work with it. Positive rate of pathogens was 80%, for which 60% were viruses, 41% were bacteria, and 21% were viral bacterial co-infection. This is extremely important because you don't normally see this. Your immune system is usually quite sophisticated in being able to handle infections. And so therefore you don't easily get co-infections. And this is part of the reason why I know that across the population, we are seeing broad immune suppression. And additionally, when they looked at the bacterial pathogens, well, the viral ones were influenza B, influenza A, and COVID. Those are the three ones, 18, 16, 14. In terms of the bacteria, it was Haemophilus influenza, staph, and strep. Now, the H flu was 36%. This is very unusual. It is a normal commensal, but this is not normal in terms of its impact and its spread. And I suspect that what is happening here in terms of the sinuses is similar to what happens to some people in terms of their intestines. We found that there is overgrowth of specific bacteria in the gut, especially the Clostridia species. And what then therefore happens is that it seems that these Clostridia species are making toxins that kill off the other bacteria. I suspect a very similar thing is happening in terms of the sinuses, because so many people have chronic inflammation, and critically, they're sometimes not even aware of it. Here we have the breakdown again of the number of pathogens. 0 is in red, that's 19%. 1 is 55%. 2 is 22%. And 3 pathogens is 3.1%. And so if you think about this broadly, 3% of the population broadly could be having 3 pathogens in their sinuses. This is pretty serious because it will be viral, it will be bacterial, and then this will predispose to fungal. And you have to remember what I'm saying is the inflammation is sitting right at the center of the brain. This is going to cause longer-term neurological issues. This is why I'm saying that one must not underestimate what is going on. As I said here, in terms of the sinuses, this sinus is my worry, because if this sinus becomes inflamed, it will then cause inflammation in and around the brain. And this is why I think it shouldn't be underestimated. The critical thing with nitric oxide is that it is a gas, and it tends to sit in the sinuses as a reservoir. And one of the problems is that because the Omicron infection tends to predispose for these sinuses, it will reduce the production of nitric oxide by causing problems with the epithelial cells. And so straight away, the infection reduces the nitric oxide, and this nitric oxide is extremely important in terms of the immune system. It's antibacterial, it's antiviral. And so if you have a situation where the levels are reduced, it will predispose to co-infections and just persistent infections. And so when it comes to Haemophilus influenza, as I said, it's normally common. It's a commensal in the upper respiratory tract. And it's also very common in subclinical sinus colonization. It tends to like a low oxygen and stagnant mucus. And this helps it to be persistent. But it's not just the fact that it's persistent that is worrying me. I've got here what I think would be a good example with the pilia are surrounding it. This bacteria is a problem bacteria. It is also the reason it's called Haemophilus influenzae, that this was one of the most common. That's why they thought this bacteria was the cause of the flu pandemic, which is why it was named Haemophilus influenza. But the nitric oxide, as I said, protects the sinuses. You have to remember that when the levels are low in the sinuses, and this is here an image of what I'd expect the sinuses to look like, that this then is linked to chronic sinusitis, allergic rhinitis, and post-viral syndromes. And a part of future treatments may target nitric oxide pathways. It is a gas that sits in the sinuses. And I usually remind people that this gas seems to be so important in terms of managing blood flow, blood pressure. It lasts for only seconds when it's released in the bloodstream, but is also important with erections. It's critical with the formation of myelin, and that's where you get all the information in the course. But this is a really critical molecule. Now, the worry with the overgrowth of Haemophilus influenza is that it is probably producing exotoxins, which are then killing off other bacteria, which is why it's overgrowing. It can cause inflammation, low-grade symptoms. Critically, one of its strategies is that it breaks down secretory IgA, which normally helps to defend the mucous membranes in the sinuses, and also impair nitric oxide and interfere with the normal bacterial commensals, leading to overgrowth. The problem is not that the bacteria is there, because as I said, it's a normal commensal. It's when the bacteria overgrows. And when it overgrows, that's when it does damage, not just to the sinuses, but to general health. How do you get around it? You hum. Really simple. This is why I said you need to do the course to understand literally how important this is. When you increase the nitric oxide in the sinuses, it is antiviral, it is antibacterial, it is anti-inflammatory. Over time, it will clear the sinuses. But you need to hum regularly. To emphasize this point about humming, if you think about what cats do when they purr, they're not purring because they like you. They purr all the time. And it seems that the vibration in the upper airway increases the nitric oxide. So for some reason, cats especially probably need lots of nitric oxide. I don't know if that's why their muscles are able to do quite lots of springing. And it's a critical part of what they do. In the same way, if you have got sinus issues, if you've got that postnasal drip, that heaviness when you wake up in the morning, that pressure on the face, chronic headaches, neurological symptoms, you have got to start humming. You learn the science by doing the course. And that's why I'm encouraging people to do the course, support our work, support the research. It's valuable information, and you will then become an expert and share this knowledge with other people. We talk all about the science of nitric oxide, how it neutralizes the spike protein, the sinuses as a reservoir, strategies to increase it. Everything is there, and critically, the free ebook. If you only want this, make sure you sign up and get it. And as I said, the final point is just remember that humming, chanting, whatever you call it, it's almost a part of every single religion. That vibration in the upper airways, sing if you want. Whatever you do, that vibration can increase nitric oxide production up to 30 times and fill those sinuses and therefore start the process of healing. This doesn't happen quickly, which is why people need to do it regularly. Over time, just hum along. It will make you feel better as well. As I said, it will protect your brain, protect your neurology, and most critically, make sure it keeps the sinuses healthy. Because at the moment, so many people are sick. They don't even know their sinuses are the problem. But we know because we're seeing the CT scans, and many people are completely asymptomatic with this continuous inflammatory process. As a general practice, I would suggest everybody should hum. It will only help us in the long run. Have a great evening.